Verse 35, it says, "And it came to pass when the ark set forward that Moses said, Rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee." If you look at the children of Israel, both biblically and historically, and look at the ways that God has been their defense, it's absolutely amazing how he fought their battles for them. That they didn't fight them, but he did. You think of the Egyptians when they left the Egyptian bondage. There are a lot of different ways that we could look at this, but you look at the way they left the Egyptians' bondage. Had they just, as I mentioned a minute ago, tried to fight their way out, it wouldn't have ended well. But then even if you look ahead at things like the Red Sea crossing, still trying to get away from the Egyptians, the way that it looked, it would have been a terrible massacre. I mean, you're trapped by the Red Sea and you have an army bearing down on you. This is not going to be pretty. But then God steps in and not only gives you a way to escape, but waited until the Egyptian army followed them in and then let the waters go. I mean, God didn't have to do that. He could have let the Israelites across and then closed the water before the Egyptian army ever got there. If he wanted to, he could have just put the Red Sea in between and said, there, they can't come get you now. Instead, he wiped them out for you.
Amen.
He killed their entire army as well. The Israelites had no defense on their own. They had, as far as we know, no weapons or power on their own. They weren't an army. They couldn't have stood against the Egyptian army, but God was their defense. So it was handled. I think it was last week I mentioned Jericho. The way that God fought that battle and did exactly what verse 35 says, that thine enemies be scattered and let them that hate thee flee. That's exactly what happened at Jericho. They were scattered and flee. In a way that can only be described as God did that. There's nothing militarily speaking that the people did that would make this work. It worked because God was their defense. There are other examples that we could give biblically of times that, I'll put it this way, that all human odds were against them, but their enemies were scattered and fled because God was their defense. But let's look at one more kind of, I guess, slightly more recent history. I think of Nazi Germany. Things like the Holocaust, a man and an army, a nation with the goal of wiping Israel off the map. And while he succeeded at killing a lot of Jews, he didn't annihilate the entire nation like he wanted to. And it had nothing to do with who came to Israel's aid. It had nothing to do with anything like that, them trying to defend themselves at all. It had nothing to do with those things. It had everything to do with they went with God, so he was their defense. Yeah. It was his goodness, as they went with God. We will go with God. Part of the goodness that he'll show you is he'll be your defense. I don't have to worry when the attacks of the devil come. And I say when on purpose because they do come. But I don't have to worry when they come. I'm not saying they're easy. I'm not saying that they are fun to deal with. I'm not saying that they don't happen. What I'm saying is I don't have to worry about them because if I'm with God, then he's my defense. He'll deal with it. Yes. I don't have to worry about attacks from people. They aren't fun. They often hurt. But I don't have to worry about them because if I'm with God, he's my defense.